Thank you, Leila. We're now starting our session on undergraduate education in the U.S. We have 4 universities that are represented: Bentley University, Loyola, Marymount University, Manhattan College, and St. Leo University. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, we can just sort of go around, start with Bentley University.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kevin. My name is Lihuan Lai. I am the Associate Director of International Admissions at Bentley University. We're located outside of Boston, mostly business university. So I'm very happy to be here. I have a short slide presentation, but also happy to answer Q&A as well if students would like to put it in the Q&A box.
Thank you very much. And now moving on to Thomas.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Sayers. I'm the Assistant Director for International Relations at St. Leo University, which is located just outside of Tampa Bay in the state of Florida. We have over 50 undergraduate degree programs, and I'm going to be more excited to be here with you all today. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. Tara, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your institution.
Helps to be unmuted. Thank you, Kevin. Hello, everyone. My name is Tara Fay-Reilly. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Manhattan College and have connected with many of you recently in the chat and excited to speak with you some more this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. And if Christie, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, greetings from Los Angeles. My name is Christie. I'm the Associate Director for International Admission at Loyola Marymount University, and I am excited to be here with you, even if it's quite early in the morning for me. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And if you'd like to start then with individual presentations, Bentley, I guess we'll just go in the same order. If you could share your screen and any slides that you might have, and we'll continue from there. If you could unmute yourself.
Thank you, Kevin. That would really help, huh? Welcome again. My name is Lihuan. I'll keep this presentation to less than 5 minutes, and I'll hopefully make it more interactive. And please, again, at any point, put your questions in the Q&A. I'm sure Kevin will help moderate. And let's begin here with the basics. So what is considered, what are we looking for? What are the requirements in a admission application? There are roughly close to 5,000 universities and colleges in the United States. All of them are different. So what I'm sharing with you here today will apply to, I would say, a majority of them, but there are always exceptions. So when you're looking at the university you're interested in, make sure you do go to their admissions page and look carefully at the requirements. So let's go through some of the more standard or common application requirements. Let's say that I'll go to number 2 first, which is the application fee. Generally, the fees range from $50 US dollars to $100. There is, if you ask universities, there's a chance that they will give you an application fee waiver. Some universities have taken the liberty to actually waive the fee this year. I've seen universities that do that due to the pandemic. They've waived the application fees for all students. Second thing, go back to the first one, is the application and supplemental application. At Bentley and many other universities, common application is a form, online application form that students can complete. They ask for information like your name, what school you attend, how many siblings do you have, what activities you've done, participated, and your essay. So that's common application. There's also coalition application, which is gaining momentum in the United States. Also, universities might have their own application that you can complete but I would say that most of them ask for very similar information that I mentioned earlier: your name, where do you attend school, activities, your college essay or statement, and other relevant information. Universities might require a supplemental form that asks additional information, perhaps like, why do you want to apply to Bentley University? Or what are your thoughts about the honor code system in our university? So that requires additional research. So rather than, so with common application, you can select as many universities as you want, as long as you're willing to pay the fee, and send your application to those universities. So let's say you select 10. The same application goes to all the 10 universities. Let's say you select 50 universities. I hope you don't. But if you do, the same common application will be sent to all 50 universities. So how do these universities distinguish themselves, right? They might ask for supplemental form, supplemental essay, and that's where those additional questions I mentioned earlier come in. What are other requirements for your application to be complete? Certainly your official transcript or official marks that tell us your performance, your academic performance in your secondary school, right, or high school. Depending on where you are, it could be, your secondary school could be 3 years. Typically, universities in the United States would like to see 3.5 years. So if your current grade is 12th grade or your last year of secondary school, we want to see at least 3 full years of your academic performance. And hopefully your current, this is your last year in secondary school, your current marks, so your progress marks or semester marks or your trimester marks, for example. National exams are certainly required if your educational system requires you to take national exam. So some examples are perhaps your IGCSE, or O-level. I know that they're phasing out of 8 O-levels right now, or maybe your 10th year, you're required to sit for a national exam in addition to your internal grades and transcripts. So number 4 is evidence of English language proficiency. At Bentley, for example, we have students coming from nearly 100 countries. And at Bentley University, students, learn in English. So we want to make sure that students are able to perform, are able to communicate with the professors and their peers, right? So we require English proficiency exam. Some examples are TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingual, PTE or PET, I apologize. And each university have their range that they're looking for, or the minimum. Some of them call it the minimum. Certain universities call them, they prefer certain test scores. Due to the pandemic, most of these exams have gone online, so you're able to take these tests online. The number 5 is standardized test results. And I mentioned, so every university has a slightly different policy regarding standardized test results or test scores exams. ACT and SAT are the more common standardized test scores. So I put in test blind, test optional, and test flexible. These are the 3 different policies that you'll see in US universities, and I'll go ahead and talk about it briefly. Test blind is when a university opts for a test blind policy. It means they will not even take a look at your SAT or ACT results. They prefer you don't send it in. Your admission decision will not be based on your ACT or SAT test scores at all. Test optional is when students and applicants have the decision. You decide if you want to submit those test scores, if you're able to take those tests, right? Especially given how many test centers are canceled due to the pandemic. If you're able to, and you believe that you're doing pretty well and you did pretty well in your test score, you have the option. You decide if you want to submit those tests or not. And every universities will have a slightly different consideration on how they'll use those tests if you do submit them. So for example, at Bentley University, if we're test optional this year, and if a student submit it, and if it helps with the student's application, then we'll consider it as part of the evaluation. If it does not help with the student's admission evaluation, then we won't consider it. Some universities, regardless if it helps or if it doesn't help with your admission evaluation, if you submit it, they will consider as part of the application. So do, reach out to the universities, especially if they're your top 5 universities that you're interested in, reach out and ask them specifically how they evaluate test scores, given it's optional this year for them. And the third one is test flexible. And it's a slightly confusing, certainly for many students, because there's quite a range in terms of what the universities accept. So test flexible means in lieu of a SAT or ACT test score, students can submit other forms of tests, like perhaps universities will accept 2 SAT 2 exams, and you do not need to submit the general SAT examination. Or a university will say, if you're an IB diploma student, you do not need to submit SAT or ACT. So there's a range of scenarios with test flexible. Again, I would do the research and really reach out to these universities and make sure you do the research in terms of what they're looking for. And of course, there's letters of recommendation. Typically, universities like to see 2. The minimum I've seen are usually 1. And also a letter of recommendation from your school counselor. If you don't have a school counselor, perhaps your principal or even another teacher who can help give you sort of a general perspective of your performance in the school. Personal essay or personal statement, there's about 4 or 5 different prompts that students can answer in the Common App and different applications. Do spend out, I'll go into a little bit. Depending on the university, they might require you to submit a statement of financial resources. So if a university considers your ability to pay, they will ask you for a statement of financial resources. If a university does not consider your ability to pay as part of the admission requirement, they might not require you to submit the statement of financial resources. So every university is different. Okay, I'll go through this really quickly. Make sure your application is complete. Be aware of deadline dates. There's early decision 1. I've seen more and more universities that are taking on early decision 2, early action, regular decision. These are different rounds of application that you can submit. When you're looking at a university, make sure your majors are aligned. So at Bentley University, we're mostly a business and arts and sciences university. If a student who is interested in engineering applies to Bentley, we're unlikely to accept the student, even if the student is is a high academic performer, because we don't have that major for the university, right? We're not a good fit for them. Be reflective, spend a lot of time on writing out your application. Make sure you do try to insert some of your personal qualities and some of the activities section, definitely in your essay. Admission representatives read hundreds and thousands of applications. So we're really, for essay to jump out at us. We're really looking for something original, and that really stands out to us. So take the time to have people take a look at your essay and see what their reaction and feedback are. Again, I mentioned a little bit about supplemental essay. Make sure you answer the question and do the research. I am not sure if students are aware, but every university has an admission profile, which gives you some information about what the university is looking for. The median or average SAT or ACT test scores that this university has accepted, right, for admitted students. The average grade point average or GPA that the university has accepted in the last year in terms of the applicants. And then, if you can, try to convey if universities understand that students are applying to 10, 15 universities. So it does matter when you convey why you're interested in that university, even if it's through an email, a supplemental essay, or online interview. So just to sum up, right, we're looking for 3 years, 3 full years of your academic grades, hopefully mid-year grades or progress. We're looking for, is your academic performance, are you doing better over time or doing worse over time, right? What is the trend? Are you selecting, if you have the ability to select your course level, are you selecting very rigorous classes or are you selecting average classes? Test scores, I talked a bit about. What else are we looking for? We're looking to see if you're an engaged student. Are you involved in clubs, sports, right? Why is that important for universities? It's important because we hope you're engaged while you're at our university. We hope that you'll join clubs and be successful. We hope you'll find clubs and start clubs at our universities, right? I mentioned that some universities do provide interviews. I would recommend you to do that with your top 4 universities, as they're a really good opportunity for you to showcase you in addition to the paper application, right? All right, that's it for now. Thank you. And I'll pass it on to the next presenter.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. Am I good to go? Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just have a few short slides, give a little bit of a different type of background to more about the questions that you should ask yourself before going in to the application process. So really making sure that you're filling out the application for the school that best fits you. You just got a lot of great information, a lot of in-depth information about the application process and what the different schools are looking for. So these are good questions to ask yourselves before you start that application process to think, will this school be a fit for me? Is this somewhere I want to go? So again, there's so many different institutions in the United States, thousands of different institutions that have different specializations. Are you looking to go to a school that's mainly in arts? Are you looking to go to a business, a culinary school? So it's very important that you start that application for a school that you want to, that you can see yourself at. Again, thinking about your top 5 schools. Before the comment made about the Common App, sending the Common App to 50 different schools, while you may think that's a great idea, that means those 50 different schools will most likely reach out to you. So you also don't want to become overwhelmed in that process. You want to make sure you're kind of narrowing your searches and going to schools that are in your reach. The United States is huge. There's 50 different states. So you want to take a look at the different areas. Are you wanting to go to a coastal area, be by the water? Are you wanting to be in a more suburban or more urban or a rural area? What is your desire to study in? Where do you see yourself having the most opportunities once you get into school when it comes into campus involvement, different internships that you have off-campus opportunities for? Also, really another important factor is the cost. So a lot of applications do come with that application fee. I know here at St. Leo, we don't have an application fee. A lot of universities have been waiving those application fees due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but you have to look beyond that application fee and think of the different scholarships, grants, and sponsors that each institution offers as well. So you have to make sure that you're applying to that university, that's your best financial fit to ensure that you're setting yourself up for success, not only in your studies, but also your post-studies. And knowing the application process, it's very, very important that you're aware of the application from start to finish. You're aware of the different financial aid that you can be offered. Feel free, you should ask as many questions as you have throughout this process, especially if it's your first time going through a process like this. The college application process can be simple for some, and for others, it could be a very hard task, and that's okay. It's important to ask those questions. I would definitely work with the Education USA and the American Councils for those initial questions, and then you can always feel free to get in contact with the different admissions reps through the different universities to make sure that you're getting all your questions answered before you go in to your particular institution. So just again, more on where you want to study. I'll keep harping on that because that's just so important, especially going into that application process. Doing your research on the institution before going in. Even this might sound simple, but going on Google Maps and just checking out the location as well. Then you're able to see that aerial of the location and really, if you see yourself a fit at that institution. And really try to find those ties to home as best as possible, whether you're looking for that small school or that large scale institution. And again, this is just more on the application processes for the different institutions. A lot of this was covered in great depth. So I won't go on too much about this, but really I think the key takeaways here is the test optional policies. This was mentioned, a lot of universities due to COVID have gone test optional. So if you're not a strong test taker, that's definitely something, a institution you may want to look into. Now, if you're not going to submit the test scores, I would highly recommend really ensuring that you have a strong statement of purpose, a personal essay, and be honest in your personal essay. You don't want to caught having plagiarism on your personal essay because it's something that should be about you. This is your one opportunity where you're able to really kind of boast about yourself and talk about your accomplishments that you've done from up to now in your life that you want to share with the university representatives. So be original, be honest, and then really have a good application in terms of your campus involvement. I know, especially at St. Leo, we look for students that are well-rounded. So yes, you have to have those strong academic backgrounds, but if you're a student who's held multiple leadership positions throughout high school, been part of multiple clubs, that shows that you're a student that can take on many tasks and do pretty well with time management, especially if you can still do good in school. So it's really important to kind of add all those small details into that application because they really do get looked at and they really are taken into consideration when we do the reviews of the applications. So I think I'm getting pretty close to that 5-minute mark, so I will let my other colleagues go ahead and go on. But thank you so much for taking the time to come to this presentation today.
Great, thanks very much, Thomas. Now, if we could move on, who is next? I guess we'll move to Tara.
Sure. You've received some great information from Bentley and St. Leo. As I was looking at my slides, I'm like, they're reading my slides. So I'm not going to show you slides right now because I don't want you to get Zoom fatigue. I know that you have more in the program to go, but I want to leave you with 3 things. This is such a new environment for you and for my colleagues in higher education. And the information you've received this morning is really powerful. And I want you to make sure that when you're looking at the schools, really search to see, a lot of schools have changed their policies around COVID. We've at Manhattan saw really early on how students were having challenges with SAT exams as they were being canceled. Many schools will go test optional at this point. At Manhattan, we've done that for this fall 2021 class that we're recruiting right now. But we will still require English proficiency for our international students. So And that's through a number of different options, whether it's TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo. So it does behoove you to do your research with each institution to see what their requirements are going to be, because they can vary greatly from institution to institution. 3 things that I think you should leave with today. I believe this was mentioned before. It's not just about your grades and test scores. It's about who you are as a person. Every student is going to submit an application. Every student will have transcripts. Every student will have a letter of recommendation, but your essay and your personal statement, that's the time where you have to be your biggest cheerleader. That's where we're going to learn what makes you unique and how you're going to contribute to the community and be a part of what's happening on campus and have an ability to be a force of change. So I encourage you really to use that platform to let us know who you are and make your application stand out from all those that will be reading. When you're doing your search, don't just look for the big names, but you might find there are other institutions that have really great opportunities for you that may be a little bit smaller, but they could be a really great fit. So you want to make sure that you're considering the feel of the campus, the college location. Is it in an urban setting? Is it rural? Is it suburban? If it is suburban, do you have access to a major city nearby? What are the internship opportunities nearby? So you want to really make sure that you're doing a full scope of research within that area as well. International students typically have more difficulty visiting campuses. One silver lining in this COVID era is that many schools have now increased their virtual presence. So you have a really rich opportunity moving forward to get to know us in a very different way, because now we're meeting you where you are. So take a look and see where there are virtual open house fairs coming up, where you can meet with faculty and current students, take virtual tours of campus, and you really have that opportunity to start visiting and then make that connection. That's really important. And whether you're applying to 5 schools or 12 schools, it's really important that you let us know that you're interested, that you are showing that you have, that we're also replying to you and showing interest in you as a student. So really make that connection, whether it's with admissions or faculty. If you want to speak with current students, don't be shy to ask about that, because that's something that everybody would, within an admissions role, would be happy to connect you with. So do your research, reach out for support when needed. Don't be shy. Don't, there's never a wrong question to ask, and you'll have a lot of support moving forward. Thank you, Kevin.
Great, thanks very much, Tara. Now, if we could move on to Christie, and then we'll get some questions addressed here.
Sure. Once again, my colleagues are very prepared, and so I had to switch which slides I'll be showing. So I'll try to cover a little bit more in depth about a few different topics, but I really feel like you've been given such fabulous information that I can just focus on a few things. I think the main thing I would share in this process of application would be really knowing yourself and being honest with yourself about what type of atmosphere is best for you. Are you looking for, first is location. Are you looking for 4 seasons? Los Angeles is not your place. If you're looking for 4 seasons, you would need to go to Bentley or somewhere in an area that has those types of seasons. In terms of your major, what are you going to do after with your major? What professional ambitions do you have? And therefore, when you're thinking about the location, what industries make up the economic area that you are looking to get into? For example, if you're interested in engineering or entertainment or business, perhaps Los Angeles is for you. If you're looking to do an internship in Wall Street, perhaps East Coast is for you. Perhaps going to school at a place like Bentley would be more your style. And so when you're thinking of locations and industries, what's the point of going to university in the first place? It's that promise of a better future, right? It's getting a job. I would like to think it's education for education's sake, but I'm also a pragmatist. And so when you're thinking about location, also think about the accessibility of internships. How close are those companies where I can do my internship? What type of offerings does the community surrounding the university have for me? And how would I access and commute to those types of internships? Another thing I will mention is size. Are you comfortable in a big research institution that does $1 billion worth of research, where your classes may or may not be taught by a professor that has a PhD? Are you comfortable with having a teacher's assistant? I was a teacher's assistant in graduate school, and I felt like I gave my heart and soul to my students, and you may find that's the learning style that that is best for you. Or would you rather have a smaller class size with a PhD professor? Would you like to be a part of the community? Would you like to be more anonymous? And so these are questions that only you can ask and only you can answer with accuracy. Does internationalization matter to you? How deeply are you looking to immerse into only the American culture? Do you want a diverse type of community? Do you want a diverse type of city? I would say financial fit is also another aspect to take into consideration. Does the university offer scholarships? Do they match full need for your situation? And so these are some things that that students need to take into consideration once they're looking at a university. It seems obvious, but does the university have the major that you're interested in? You'd be surprised how many applications or questions that I get about architecture. We don't offer architecture. So just know yourself and do the research on the universities. And so for our application process, as my very prepared colleagues have left me not a lot to talk about in terms of the application process, thank you very much. I'll talk a little bit about what makes the LMU process distinct. The application, the only thing that would make our application distinct is our additional supplemental essay, which is optional. There are many to choose from. You can pick one that best suits your interests and the one that you feel best prepared to write. English proficiency. We have many ways to establish English proficiency, as many of my colleague institutions here. We were one of the early adapters for Duolingo English test. This is a test that you can take in the comfort of your own home. It is substantially less expensive than the TOEFL, IELTS, and the PTE. And so many of us universities are looking to facilitate the process of application. And this is one of those parts of the application where we're looking for creative ways in order to be able to help students complete their applications. So being able to establish English proficiency with the Duolingo test. Our back office internal practice is also if you're taking IB, for example, and are taking standard English. If you receive a 5 in IB1, IB year 1, we will give you a waiver. There are many circumstances where internally we will offer students waivers. And if you think you might qualify, you can just email the admission offices and ask if you qualify for an English proficiency waiver. Once again, we're all looking to think outside of the box and creatively accommodate students during this year, especially application process. SAT and ACT scores have for some time been optional. If you do submit it, we do look at it. And so if you believe that your score corroborates your performance at your institution, at your high school, I would encourage you to submit it. Otherwise, if you have a nice admission counselor, which my colleagues here on this call all look very nice, you can reach out and ask them if your score corroborates your performance before you submit. And so you can see we have different different deadlines on the bottom. Our early action and early decision has passed November 1st. Hot off the press, we are announcing early decision 2, which the deadline will be at the end of the year. And so in addition to November 1 and January 15th, we also have an additional deadline, once again, thinking outside of the box to accommodate students in this very unprecedented time. I think I have a couple more minutes, but I will yield the floor in order to be able to accommodate all the questions in the Q&A in order to be sure everybody has their questions answered.
Thanks very much, Christy. Let's address some of the questions that are in the chat first, so we don't lose sight of those, and then we'll move over to the Q&A section. Some general questions. Are internships important? This is a question from Emilia. Tara, would you like to address that?
Sure. In regards to a application, if we are looking at a graduate application, we'll look to see if what experience our students are coming in with. However, on the undergraduate side, that's not something that we would necessarily be making decisions based off of, but our students do have opportunity while studying at the college to take internships. We work closely with our Department of International Students and Scholars to make sure that it fits within our program, to make sure that you're staying within your status and that we are offering that opportunity to you. And what that internship can do is really set your resume apart then when you're ready to start your professional career. So it gives you the opportunity to really go beyond the textbook and classroom and get that experiential learning that's really important to your 4 years of study. We have a trading lab within our O'Malley School of Business, and it's Bloomberg technology that they use on Wall Street. So our students, what we're finding is during their coursework in that program and utilizing that trading lab, when they get to their internships now, sometimes they're like, hey, I've already done this in my class. And then they're getting some extra experience within the internship that then increases the value of their resume when they're poised to graduate, and whether they go on for additional study or right into their professional career.
Thanks much, Tara. And maybe if Christy, if you could address this, there's a question, and this is a common question from students from sort of the broader region here, is participation in competitions, academic competitions, is that important for undergraduate applications?
I think that the greater question here is what involvement is meaningful in an application. And I feel like if you are participating in competitions for math and science and you're applying for sociology, probably not. If you are applying for engineering, sure. I think that what I am when I'm reading an application, what I'm most interested in is if this student is interested in a specific major, what are some of the things that they have done in preparation for that study? And so this is really demonstrated interest. So if you are applying to a business school and you have a competition in baking, I don't know, culinary competition, it's probably not going to advance your application to Bentley. Am I incorrect, Lihuan? And so I would say,
That's a great example. I love it.
If it adds value, if you believe it adds value to your application, include it. If it doesn't make any connection with what you have on your application as demonstrated interest, I would say probably not. I hope
Great,
that is an honest enough answer for you.
I think that that's honest as well as concise. There's a question specifically for you, Christie. Do you have engineering programs?
Yes, we have civil, mechanical, and electrical engineering. We're also surrounded by Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, SpaceX, and Tesla, Boeing, Raytheon, and the names go on in a 3-mile radius. And so we have lots of synergistic relationships with those companies and opportunities for internships and mentorships. And so, yes, the answer is absolutely. We are in the top 20 for undergraduate engineering.
Okay. A general question, do any of your universities, institutions offer medical programs, pre-med?
So Loyola Marymount offers a pre-med preparatory program. And that means that you can take any major, including psychology, and be a part of this program that makes sure that you're taking the right courses, that gives you the correct preparation in order to apply for medical school. If you're looking at outcomes, we have a student that graduated 3 years ago that's now in her last year of Harvard Medical School, and we're very proud of Lash Nolan, as she is the first Black female to lead their student body as president. So yes, and fabulous outcomes.
That's
Manhattan
awesome.
College has a similar pre-professional track as well for our students and advisors that are dedicated to working with them throughout the 4 years.
Absolutely. Same with Stanley, we have a medical humanities with the pre-med track, and then also the biology and the medical health humanities. And we're also going to be launching nursing very soon. So those are a few different tracks that we do have.
Great, thank you. This is more of a general question. If the school is test optional but still highly selective, does it lower an applicant's chances if that person does not send their SAT scores? Lihuan, if you want to address this.
Sure, that's a great question and also a tough question. I wish I can give you a blanketed statement and say yes or no, but the reality is that it really depends on the university. So my recommendation is to reach out to your admission representative in that university that you're applying for. It could be maybe the top 4 or top 5, and ask them that question. Take a look and see what the university admission profile is in terms of the SAT and ACT test score, right? They usually will give you a range, and you can provide in the email, let's say, can provide your test score and say, this is what I received. Do you recommend that I submit it or not? I think most university representatives are very honest and will share with you directly their suggestion. I find it hard to believe that universities won't give you a suggestion or recommendation, or will take that in a negative way. But maybe the first thing is to compile a list with the top 5 universities that you're interested in, look at their admission profile for admitted students, and then outreach to your admission counselor. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, great. Thanks much. Thomas, maybe you could take this question. There are 2 questions about letters of recommendation. What should be included? What makes a letter of recommendation stand out? And should they be in English?
Of course, yes. So when you're looking to do your letters of recommendation, you can get them from a lot of different backgrounds. So most commonly, they'll come from the educational background. So from maybe one of your high school teachers, or if you were involved in a leadership role in a club or on a sports team, it may also benefit you to get a letter of recommendation from that coach or from that club's advisor. And really, when they write your letters of recommendation, they're going to highlight your best highlights. So they're going to be able to talk about how you excelled in that specific area. Most oftentimes they don't write negative comments, or else they wouldn't have agreed to do a letter of recommendation for you. So definitely they typically include accomplishments or achievements that you may have done, or really just talk about how you excel, and maybe you excel in math and you've done very well recently on different math projects or different projects within the classroom and your time management. Most oftentimes they should most definitely be in English, especially you want it to be very concise for us to be able to evaluate and not have us have to go and translate any documentation. That way your application process just flows a little bit smoother.
Great, thanks. Which of your institutions, maybe just raise hands and then I'll call on somebody for discussion, which are more sort of STEM-based and which are more humanities-based? The question specifically is which have more of humanities focus? Is there anybody here who wants to address that?
That's a difficult one. We are both humanities and STEM. And so we're based on what Los Angeles is known for. So Los Angeles is a large engineering, defense, contracting, entertainment, performing arts hub. And so we're not one or the other, we're both.
I would echo that for Manhattan College. We have one of the oldest engineering programs. It was one of the first programs, schools within Manhattan College. However, we do have an O'Malley School of Business, and we have a really strong liberal arts school that supports all of our schools in terms of that core liberal arts curriculum and education that students would receive. We also have a education and health school and a school of science, and through there you can look at nuclear medical technology, radiation therapy, biology, as well as your chemical engineering, mechanical, and then as well all those, the plethora of programming within liberal arts. So whether it's psychology, English, all those humanity coursework. So we're a blend of both worlds as well.
Yeah, I'll just jump in really quickly. One of the things tips that I often tell international students is that with a STEM designated major, students are allowed to work up to 3 years in the United States through the OPT program, Optional Practical Training Program. So certainly a huge advantage for students if your interests align with a STEM degree, right? Certainly it's a huge advantage. And so at Bentley, we are mostly business university and also arts and sciences, and we do offer 6 STEM majors at Bentley. We don't have engineering, but 3 of our STEM degrees are in business and 3 are in arts and sciences. So we really do blend in business and arts and sciences together at Bentley.
Okay, let's just take 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. If a student is applying as undeclared, with an undeclared major, I think, is the question, what accomplishments matter? I think that this pertains to what kinds of things should go into an application, what kinds of things should a student highlight? Maybe Christie?
Sure. I think it really depends on the university that you're applying to. Loyola Marymount is a Jesuit institution, and so we're looking for students that are involved in supporting the administration of their school, but not necessarily only those students. We're looking for students that are involved in their community. We're looking for students that have an interest in their fellow man. But we're also looking for students that are academically curious. We don't mind if you don't know what you want to study. 50% of our students matriculate undeclared. And so there isn't really a list of criteria that we can give. I would say focus on what makes you unique and focus on what makes you tick, right? What makes you happy. And present your personality and your interests and show us that you're academically curious, that you have a hunger for learning, that you would like to be a part of our community. I think that in addition to academically prepared students, even if you don't know what you want to study, we're also looking for good citizens on campus, those that will share their culture and their mindset and their point of view. And I think this is perhaps one of the more important things that I can offer you if you don't know what you want to study. You will figure it out, I promise.
Great, thanks very much. And a somewhat related last question. If a student is participating in extracurricular activities, however, doesn't have confirmation, official confirmation in terms of a certificate or something like that, are those things still relevant to include, such as volunteer events as school president? How do you work those kinds of things into an application if you don't have official recognition of participation in those kinds of things? Tara?
That's an interesting question. The Common App does allow for you to indicate your leadership opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and any kind of participatory activity throughout your high school career. So even our domestic students, they will, whether they were captain of the volleyball team or participated in soup kitchen, they will indicate that on the Common App, but we do not ask them for any certification of that. But again, it does show us your interests, how you'd be able to contribute to the community as a whole once you're on campus. So those pieces tell us more about you. So it's good information to share with us, but we would not be following up with documentation for those activities.
Great, thanks very much to Tara, and thank you to the rest of our panelists for participating in this session on undergraduate education in the U.S. We're going to clear the way for our next session at this point. Thanks again.
Thank you for having us.
Bye. Thank you so much.